Hey Last Looks crew, we just finished up season 8 of the show and now we are into rerun world to give little old me a minute to try and catch up. Now there are a few things I want to chat about before we get into this awesome episode with longtime friend and off and on work buddy over the years, hair and makeup artist and founder of LSB. LSB, that's the only standby set bag I use. And the artist is Georgia Lockhart Adams. And I wanted to remind you we have our next live Q&A with hair and makeup artist Kate Benton. Now, Kate is also the owner of Pam London. If you follow them on Instagram, you would have seen their Tuesday tips videos. Kate is well known for sharing knowledge, building community, and as a mentor to many. So get your ticket, submit your questions for Kate, and we'll see you June 1st. The link's in the show notes or look for the live Q&A section on the website last-looks.com. This is our 8th live Q&A, so we only have 2 more left after this one. And then we would have spoken to all 10 of our top downloaded podcast guests of all time. If you missed any of the 10, you can just head over to that website, last-looks.com, and go to the live Q&A section and they'll all be up there. Now, I'm going to take a moment to brag about LSB, the brand that Georgia, the guest of this episode, owns and runs. And if you're sick of wearing your set bag on your shoulder, then you might want to pay attention. LSB stands for Linear Standby Belt. Now, in New Zealand, and I'm sure other places, we call our set bag our standby bag. But in this case, it is a belt. I have been wearing one for over 10 years. And that means it's been over 10 years since I wore a set bag on my shoulder. Sounds like bliss. Well, yeah, it kind of is. The system Georgia has created starts with a comfy wide belt that you attach bags onto. There are all different shapes and sizes of bags, so every job I do, I tend to build my set belt to fit the job I'm doing. I wear it around my waist all day and sometimes forget I even have it on. It is that comfortable. It is designed to carry the weight on the sides of your body, using your hips and legs, and not on the front and not on your shoulders. Georgia has also recently launched a range of packing cubes for travel, and they are beautiful. Now, people who know Georgia know that she is an organized and tidy artist, and you see that in the design of these cases. They are magic. Because I love Georgia, I love her amazing brand, and I love you guys, my Last Looks crew, we got chatting and decided that you need to check out her on-set game-changing line and get 15% off when you order using the link linearbelts.com/lastlooks or use discount code LASTLOOKS, all one word, at checkout. And let me spell that for you. Linear Belts, linearbelts.com/lastlooks. And when your order arrives, tell me what you think. Okay, let's get on with this episode. My name is Jamie Lee, a hairstylist working in film, and this is the Last Looks podcast, a show where I catch up with hair and makeup artists working in the film industry around the world. And today, I'm chatting with hair and makeup artist Georgia Lockhart Adams. On with the show.
And now, our feature presentation.
Pictures up.
Last looks. Rolling.
And action.
Welcome to the Last Looks podcast, Georgia.
Hi, Jamie Lee. Thank you for having me.
Now, I would like you to finish this sentence for me, okay?
Okay.
Once upon a time, there was a girl named Georgia, and when she grew up, she wanted to be...
Oh, my goodness. What did I want to be? That is such a good question. Do you know, when I was really young, I actually wanted to be, at one point, an air hostess.
Oh, maybe so did I.
Did you?
Yes, they're called a flight attendant now, but
a flight
yes,
attendant.
I did.
Yes. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. I didn't know that about you, JL.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I'd never actually been on a plane at that point, so I don't know where I was getting that from, the TV probably.
Yeah. I love it.
So at what point did you decide to not be a flight attendant and move into hair and makeup?
Hair and makeup. Okay, so I think that I fell into hairdressing sort of by accident, actually, and it was an after-school job. of mine. And so I started hairdressing when I was about, I think I was either 13 or 14. And I just started out with, shampooing hair and making coffees and sweeping the floor and all that sort of thing. And then I sort of quickly discovered that I really loved, that environment, and I was really interested in colouring. And so I just kind of, pretty quickly got my hands into it. I just used to work every day after school and on my weekends and in my school holidays and everything. And then I left school at the end of my sixth form year, which I guess is the year before, the last year of school, to go and do a year of makeup training. And by that stage, I was like quite deep in the hairdressing already and absolutely loving it. Yeah. And so I decided that I wanted to I'd heard about this makeup college, and I really thought that obviously, one complemented the other, and I was really interested in, getting involved in makeup and learning all about, and I didn't know what I wanted to go into at that point, but it was sort of a really well-rounded course. They did a bit of, theatre and fashion and, very basic entry-level prosthetics. We used to make bald caps and, bits and pieces like that and wounds and things. And so that's kind of how, so I was actually I was too young to do the course. I was a year too young, but the tutor allowed me to do it, I think, because she could see that I was, working hard already in the salon and I was really committed to it. And so that was kind of my, my vision at that point was that I wanted to become a hair and makeup artist. I really loved the idea of the whole package, the whole look. So I did my makeup course, and then, from there was back into the salon full time. So by the time I was 18, I'd already finished all my training and I was back working full time in the hair salon, and sort of supplementing that with, we used to do a lot of photographic shoots. So I used to do all the makeup, and I used to just do the young girls that were coming in to get their hair done for balls. I used to do the makeup and those sorts of bits and pieces. That's kind of how I started in the early days.
That's very cool. I have to ask though, what course did you do?
The makeup course was what was it? It was like a faculty of makeup and design at the Design and Arts College.
Was it the Design and Arts College?
Yeah.
I did the same course.
You did the same one in Christchurch.
I was like 21, I think, by the time I did that though.
Okay.
So,
well, we must be, I know you're younger than me, aren't you? So it would have been a few years later.
No.
No?
I'm older than you.
Oh, are you? Yeah. No.
We must have been like a couple of
years
out from each other. I reckon.
Okay.
Yeah. But who was the tutor? Was it Midge?
It was Midge. Yes. Yeah. She was great. Yeah. Okay, I was the same tutor. That's awesome.
She was great. Yeah.
Oh, very good. Hilarious. Yeah. So that was all done and dusted by the time I was, I think I was 18 when I'd finished, and I was back in the hair salon. And then, I guess that's where it sort of led into my first film job.
Oh, really? In Christchurch?
Well, yes, it started in Christchurch.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I was aware that Lord of the Rings was shooting, and they were up sort of around Wellington. They were based in Wellington at the time, and I knew that they'd already been shooting for probably, a year or so, 6 months or a year. They were actually shooting while I was in that makeup college. And I'd sort of thought to myself, I didn't really know whether film was what I wanted to do, but I was really willing to give it a crack and see if I could get amongst and experience it, in the crowd room and everything. And so I didn't know how, but, who do I email? How do I do this was basically my question. And so I had heard through a family, basically one of my mum's really close family friend of ours, a friend of hers was actually on the main team. Her name was Lenore Stewart, and she was looking after one of the hobbits on Lord of the Rings. And anyway, so we basically, via contact through her, I was able to get the name of, contact details of the woman who was running the crowd room. And so just by getting that direct contact, I was able to sort of start emailing, reasonably regularly to express my interest. Yeah. And then finally I got an email back, because basically I had an email back one day saying we need to be based in Wellington. And at that point I was, working full time in the salon, and I was 18, and I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to just jump on a plane and go to Wellington. And, I just wasn't sure that was what I wanted to do. So she had said, you need to be in Wellington. Otherwise, we're going to be coming down to the South Island in a few months. And so if you're interested, you could possibly join the team, when we come down south. And I was like, oh, that sounds perfect. That would be really exciting and great opportunity. So I sort of, said that, yes, I would love to do that. And she said, well, we'll be in contact close to the time. So then what happened was, I guess a few months had passed by, and then I got an email to say that they were coming down south on tour and that they needed, additional makeup artists for the crowd room, and that they were going to hold a wig workshop in Christchurch for 2 days. So they set up this 2-day wig workshop, which was just the most phenomenal experience, and I guess probably a really poignant thing in my career, because that was the first time that I got to lay my hands on, which was at the time Owen and King wigs. So we had, there was about maybe 5 or 6 of us that were doing this wig workshop, and a couple of the girls from my course, same year as me from our college. And then there was a few others that I didn't really know of. And in that 2 days, we were basically taught how to care for these wigs, how to apply them, how to prep the hair, how to do a really good head wrap, how to apply the wigs, how to remove them, how to block them. It was just kind of like a 2-day crash course on working with these wigs. And I'll never forget it because, they'd just say, so, grab a wig out of the box, and I'd pull it out and I'd, have very delicate, very carefully looking at it. And then on the inside, it would have a little label that would say, Nicole Kidman or Winona Ryder or something like that. And I remember just then going, oh my God, it was so, I guess I was like very apprehensive, but also excited, going, wow, these wigs I've never seen anything like it, because, I think at college that wasn't a part of I don't think we did any lace front. It was, just kind of pull-ons and bits and pieces like that. So that was a really incredible experience. And then, so we did the 2 days, and then we went off to, I think we were shooting in a place called Mount Somers. So we got ourselves some accommodation nearby. It was about an hour and a half or so out of Christchurch. And I was booked to work for 2 weeks. And it was just unbelievable. The machine that I just couldn't believe the machine that it was. You sort of walk into that crowd tent first day, and it was so overwhelming. There was, there must have been at least 50 or 60 makeup artists and hairdressers all working in there. Everyone had their own mirror, and, we had a bit of a brief that morning of what was required. And so, it was all basically wigs and beards and a bit of breakdown dirt, all that sort of thing. Yeah. And then that was basically how it all started. So that was the day I met Peter King that day, and I'll never forget it because it was amazing. So I had been given this, this soldier that I had to put a wig and a beard on. And on his bag, it said that he was a featured extra. So anyway, I pulled the wig out and I went to put it on him, and I was like, oh gosh, there was quite a large tear in the front of the lace. And, we hadn't sort of done a lot of troubleshooting in the wig course that we had done, a few days before. So I was kind of like, oh God, it's going to be a featured extra. Oh no, it's going to be on camera. Oh my God, what am I going to do with this? It's not, So I remember I prepped his hair up and I had it all ready to go. And Peter was standing over in the distance, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go over there and I'm just going to ask, I'm just going to say, is this wig okay? I had no idea really what I was doing. And I went up to him and I said, excuse me, Peter. And he said, yes. And I said, I've got a guy in my chair. He's a featured extra, and I've got this wig, and it's got a tear in the lace. It's got a rip in it, and I'm not quite sure what I should do with it. And he picked it up and he looked at it and he handed it back to me and he said, just make it work, darling. I said, okay. And I walked off, and that was that. So I did. I just had to make it work. I just had to do my best. And, it was sort of, he was seen on camera, and I remember standing there thinking, oh my goodness. But, the little bit of trickery and, pulling down a few hairs onto his hairline and bits and pieces, it was absolutely fine. So that was my first interaction with Peter King. And then my 2 weeks of work turned into 4 months full time, which was incredible. So I ended up staying on the team, and I travelled all around the South Island with the background crew. And we were travelling around the South Island for 2 months. And then I went up to Wellington and I continued on for another couple of months up there. And that was obviously when, in there at Stone Street Studios and the makeup rooms that we both know very well, lady, the windowless makeup room. And it was there that, I guess I got to know Peter a lot better, and he sort of took me under his wing, I guess, and I used to go to set and assist him on set. And that was when I really had made that decision at that point that this was my career and this is what I wanted to do. I absolutely loved it, and I loved going to set and watching, all the hair and makeup artists with their characters. And I was just really curious about that whole journey, the journey of the character, and looking after that one person from the beginning to the end of the film and all the different looks and things that they might go through. Mm-hmm. And so I assisted Peter for a little while, and I guess the rest is history, really. That's where it all began.
That's very cool. I love that. I've known you for all this time and I never knew any of that.
Yeah. I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
That's amazing.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's very cool. Now, I wanted to chat to you about some of the incredible projects that you have worked on and the talent that you've done hair and makeup on, but also the designers that you've helped bring that vision to a reality.
Okay.
Because that's something I find quite interesting, and I think you have a very good relationship, or have had a very good relationship with every job that you've done, with the designers, with the cast. And I think that we should just dive into that a little bit more.
Sure.
So after helping out on Lord of the Rings and doing background and assisting Peter, what was the next kind of film that you did where you were actually looking after, like you had that cast member that you had from start to finish of a shoot? So what was that job?
That would have been, so after Lord of the Rings, I ended up going over to the UK for a couple of years, and I was working full-time in a hair salon over there, but also was doing some work with Peter over there. So I came over to the UK, and then he ended up coming back to New Zealand to do more Lord of the Rings pickups. Mm-hmm. So I was working in a hair salon for a good chunk of the time, but once he came back, I ended up doing more dailies for him on more films over there. So in the crowd room over in the UK. That was great. The hair skills of the UK hair people are just phenomenal. So that was really awesome being in the crowd rooms over there, and just, an incredible experience just seeing what is being produced.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so that was really great. Did a few films over in the UK. And then I came back to New Zealand. I guess by now it would have been about maybe 22. And PK had reached out because he was coming to do King Kong in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And that was the first film for me where I was allocated my own cast, which was really exciting. I was looking after 3 of the guys on that. And I absolutely loved that job. And because, again, I was doing the hair and the makeup, had my 3 cast. Of course, it was all period. So going into the crowd room and, being able to do all the period hair on the big crowd days as well. And just, always trying to keep busy doing and learning new things. Mm. But on that job, that was when I met Rick Finlater, who was our supervisor. And I always loved working with Rick, and we've worked together a lot since then. So that was the first job that I met him on as well.
That's very
so cool. So King Kong.
So with those 3 cast members, was that the first time that you'd done like full breakdown, like continuity breakdowns and stuff for your cast? Or
it was. That's exactly right.
That before? Yeah.
No, I hadn't done that before. So on that job, that was when I learnt that I needed to, obviously first job where I was given a script and I was breaking down, reading the script, breaking it down, doing each character breakdown so that I knew, the story of each character really well. And then from there, that's kind of when you start, when you're having your chats with your HOD, your designer, kind of nut out their looks.
And how much of that was Peter just kind of giving you a guide of what you were to do and you doing it, or was it more of a discussion between you and him and the cast member, or how did that kind of work?
Well, I think basically with that whole process, I can't remember specifically on King Kong, it's such a long time ago, but I do, like with PK, he is amazing. He's always got, you'll go to him. So basically, and as I said, I sort of always think of myself as a worker bee. So I kind of have a process of, I start on the job, read the script, then I read it again and do my character breakdowns. Then I'll go to the designer, whether it's PK or whether it's Rick or, somebody else, and we'll go and we'll talk about, basically I would have the story and the journey of that character already pretty well embossed in my brain. And then we will talk about their ideas. So basically, I guess the designer's vision. We'll look at costume design. We'll look at any concept art that's being drawn up. They might have some specific notes or ideas from the director or the producers already, if there's something specific. But basically, we'll kind of go through all of those things and gosh, I guess it's such a broad spectrum, because let's think about films like The Hobbit, for example, or some other ones I've done like Superman or on Aquaman with Mera. The framework is kind of already there, because those characters, we know, for example, on The Hobbit that Bilbo Baggins has sort of curly, shaggy hair. He has very large ears and he has large, hairy feet. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like you've already sort of got a framework. Or for, Mera on Aquaman, for example, our director was very specific that he wanted her to really resemble exactly basically what the comic looked like. He didn't want to, there was no real interpretation of that. He wanted her to have flaming red waist-length hair. So it's kind of like you sort of already have some of the framework in place, for a lot of characters, if they're a comic book or whatever it may be. So other ones, if they just have a look. So, for example, going back to King Kong, with those boys, it sort of is more about the character, I guess. So one of the guys I was looking after was like a movie star, Kyle Chandler. He was playing, like a movie star. So he was kind of sort of quite preppy looking. And we knew that we were using his own hair. So you're kind of talking about, he might have a bit of a blow dry and bit of, sweep it back, make it look kind of slick, clean shaven, or, you kind of just talk about the feel. And, whether you're putting a wig on them or whether you're using their own hair, that dictates a lot. And often if we're using their own hair, I'll often colour it as well, which is great having that hairdressing background, as you know, Lainey. So, so basically kind of, you have that, you have those discussions with the designer about what their vision is and what they want it to look like. And of course, with the designers that I've worked with a lot, they also always love, to hear my ideas as well. And it's kind of, talk together about it. And then from there, that's when we would, then meet the actor. So we've sort of set out what we would like to do, and then you meet the actor and then you get their input, which is, they always have their dislikes and likes and, things that they had in their vision of what the character might look like. So then kind of collaboratively, you're sort of pulling it all together, in your first meeting, or it might be a, first wig fitting, you're just sort of chatting things out and getting an idea of where you're going to start from when you do, when you start testing and playing around, and then, when you get to camera tests.
Yeah. Has it ever gotten to a point where you and the designer have kind of worked out what direction you want to go in, and then the cast members come in and just said something completely different? Or have you just been lucky enough that they're on the same kind of page or wavelengths as you guys?
I think generally speaking, they've been, especially if it's a character that's kind of already established, the actor's kind of like, if you're signing on to be the Hobbit, you're going to be the Hobbit, you can't really, there's not a lot of license to tweak that or change that really. But more so it's the little things, like I think for the actors, it's the little things that make them feel comfortable. So it might be, that you put a wig on, or you do their hair, and then they might say, I really prefer it to have a bit more height through the top or some volume, or I'd really like it to, be this or that. Like they kind of have just little things that make them feel more comfortable because they really know their faces so well. And, it's normally just more so little tweaks. But I think, on the jobs that I've worked on so far, I have never had an actor that's kind of gone, oh my God, no, this is not what I, envisaged that we were going to have, which is good.
Yeah, that would be horribly awkward.
I know it would be awkward. And
what are you, mad?
I know. That's it. And then, you get some that are just really right into just giving it everything, like I once worked on a film with Rachel Weisz. Oh, with you, lady, with you.
Mm-hmm.
And, and she, she was playing, it was on The Light Between the Oceans, and she was playing obviously a tragic story of her losing her child. And she, I remember she just really wanted to like rip right into it. She just wanted me to make her look terrible, which was hard, somebody that beautiful, but she was really adamant that she needed to just look absolutely destroyed. So she didn't want to, because I think sometimes you sort of want to edge on a bit of caution, you still want that person to feel good. They have to feel comfortable. They have to feel, but when someone's, when they're so deep into the character like that, she was just like, yeah, make me look worse. I want to hollow the eyes out more. Let's just go for it. Let's just, which is really exciting. It's great when you get that kind of situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. When they want to just lean into it.
Yes.
The opposite of that is really frustrating when somebody's just like, oh, no, can we not? They still want mascara or it's just like, no, come on.
Yeah.
Let's make this real. Let's
make it real.
Like how,
totally.
Let's make it believable.
That's exactly right. That's always been my thing. I've felt that too. You do find that frustrating where you're kind of like, oh God. So there is definitely a bit of compromise along the way sometimes. But at the end of the day, I think that is a part of my job is sort of trying to keep a lot of people happy. And the director needs to be happy.
I was about to say.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you've got the designer, you've got your actor, you've got director, there's sometimes got a producer jumping in. I mean, you're obviously, you build that relationship with your actor because they need to trust you.
That's right.
But then you have somebody else in your ear going, can you do this? So what if it's something that the actor doesn't want you to do? How do you do that?
Well, if it's something they really don't want, then that's something that I would have the conversation with the director at the end, if it's something that they're really not into and it's something that the director wants, I would have that conversation with the director and then I would let those two nut that out. I'm just trying to think of a specific situation because I do know that feeling. I have had that happen before. I can't think off the top of my head, but I do know that feeling where it's like, oh, I'm trying to do it, but she or he won't have it.
Yeah. And it's obviously better, as you say, to actually have the dialogue and get it out into the air like, oh, no, I've been asked to do this. I'm not happy with that. Oh, okay. And go back and have more dialogue.
That's exactly
right.
Instead
of just trying to fudge your way through it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And hope nobody notices.
Yes, that's right. I know. Fingers, yeah. No, that's it. So it is. It's just about keeping the communication open, I think, and trying to ensure that everybody's, and there is times where things have happened or something might happen on set. Like you've really got to be adaptable and flexible because sometimes the director might all of a sudden say, oh, you know what, actually I've decided I want them to be a bit cleaner here. And you go, oh, okay, well we've actually already shot, making this up, 15 scenes prior to this moment. And that's kind of, continuity wise, that's going to be a problem. And I'm a real stickler for continuity. It's one of my things. So, you sometimes have a situation like that happen. So sometimes it is a little bit about splitting the difference. Or what I will say is I'll just say to the director, just so that they're aware and they're all over it. So they're incredible most of the time, the directors. But you just sort of have to make them aware of, okay, I'm totally happy to do that. However, that we've shot this, such a rather scene just before this. It's not going to match. But if that's what you want, I'm happy to do it, but maybe I'll split the difference a little bit or, and I think that's the thing that's so important about knowing the journey of the character and knowing what you've done. So on the day, when we come in the morning, when we come to shoot, we might be shooting, say, 6 different scenes that day or whatever it might be. I just make sure that completely up to date with my photographs from the day before, the scene before and the scene after, just to make sure that I'm all over in my mind, where the characters come from, what's got them to this point and where they're going to next.
Yeah.
So that you just you just know where you're at. And, if those things do change, because things change all the time in the film industry, that you can kind of be prepared and ready, that if they do want to make changes, you can say, sure, I can do that. However, you realize that this is, X, Y, and Z. And if we make that change, it's going to impact what we shot the scene after or whatever it might be. And, little things like that happen because you could be dealing with the elements. It could be hair continuity. It could be anything, things just are sort of changing a lot. So, I think it's about being flexible and,
Absolutely. Or just arming yourself with all that information. So when you have all that information and you're confident on where your character is in the story, then if something happens or something is you're asked to change something, you can just confidently and directly say, you can communicate, well, we're this, is that okay? Yes, that's okay. Okay, great. And move on instead of standing there fumbling around going, oh, but I think in scene, and just frustrating a director to no end.
Right.
And then having
because they don't have the time for mucking around. They just want the facts, No. That's right. They just want the facts and they want to know that you can give them what they want. And so that is, as you say, it's just about protecting yourself and making them aware just in case they haven't thought of it. Because it has happened before. I've said, this is where we're at. And they've gone, oh, yes, you're right. You know what I mean? And because you do have to just remind them because they're thinking about everything. And we are thinking about our very specific department. You know what I mean? We're thinking about one thing. They're thinking about the overall. So it is just a good thing to be able to sort of let them know. And then it's still their decision at the end of the day and you just do what you need to do.
Yeah, you live with it.
Yeah, that's right. And we've all had those moments, that's for sure.
We have.
Yeah.
That also crosses over to your cast member as well, because if you're all over your continuity in the story and how everything's gone for them, then if they have any questions either, they'll just be like, oh, what was it looking like in the scene before this? I can't remember. Then you can just be like, oh, here's a photo. This is where you're at. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. But there have been times that I've worked with people where the actor is telling the hair and makeup person what the continuity should be. And I'm like, that's amazing and very gracious of them. But at the same time, it's not their job. It's not their job.
I know.
You should know it.
That's right. And that makes me feel a little uncomfortable. I have to tell you, I go, oh, it is our job to be all over that. All over it like a rash.
Yeah.
We need to have it.
And it can be very difficult if the script is like, I've worked on a couple of jobs where, oh my goodness, the script is changing constantly. The script numbers, like there's A101 and C101 being thrown into the middle of everything and it can get a little confusing. But you want to be the one that's on top of it.
That's really, exactly right. Exactly. And as you say, they can be really confusing scripts. Sometimes you've got scripts that are they're just dealing with flashbacks and different time periods and, oh my gosh, all of these things. I remember when I was working on Avatar with Sam Worthington, and when he arrived, he had his own hair. And then, in the film, he obviously has like a jarhead haircut for a lot of it, that really military short haircut. So they wanted to use his own hair for when it was longer in the film for as much as possible. But then basically the whole schedule was revolved around cutting his hair and trimming his beard back to the jarhead and a clean shave. So we basically did everything in reverse. And that was crazy because everything revolved around that. So there was a lot of pressure on me to, we'd shoot a scene, right, quickly race Sam back to the trailer for another haircut and another beard trim. And it was kind of all, staged out, which obviously, we had worked through in his original character breakdown, how we were going to do that. But, when a schedule's being based around the hair It's a bit of pressure, that's for sure, But sometimes,
get it right.
That's right. You get one chance, So, yeah, that's another scenario where you go, oh, better get it right.
That's interesting. That doesn't happen. Yeah, that doesn't happen very often either, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And then we still had to use a wig for some stuff. But I think that James Cameron just really wanted to use his own hair and his own beard for as much of it as possible, when we first got there.
Yeah.
So we did do a lot of that, but, then we still had to use a wig for other scenes, later on in the shoot once he had a star head. That's right. Yeah.
I also remember on that first season of Spartacus with you looking after lovely Andy Whitfield.
Yes.
And the amount of just his wounds that you were keeping an eye on, all his different wounds and sweat and blood and dirt.
I think I've blocked that out, JL. I think I've blocked it out.
But I could see, like, I wasn't working in the trailer with you. I think I was running background on that one, but I could just see how focused you were on making sure that for every scene he was at the right level of dirt, the right level of sweat, that the wounds were in the right place, he had the correct wounds on, all that type of stuff. And it was amazing to watch because it's just like, oh man, she is on it.
Oh, and that's very kind. Thank you.
And Taryn makes you work so much quicker as well because you have a plan. You know what's coming up next. You know what needs to happen. And I enjoyed watching that on the sidelines.
Oh, that's very kind. Well, that job was like absolutely insane. And for the first couple of episodes, he was also wearing this beautiful wig, sort of shoulder length wig, because he'd come from slavery. So he had this long hair and he had permanent scars. So he had a couple of scars that were just on his body, every single day of every single episode. They were, scars from earlier in his life. And then we had, as you say, it was just insane because every single episode he was in another battle. So, we would go into an episode, he would have a gladiatorial fight, and he'd have, let's call it 6 new slash wounds from these swords. But then in that episode, he would also have the healing wounds from the last, battle in the episode before. So we had, as you said, varying levels of healing wounds plus fresh wounds, plus all the dirt, the sand, the sweat, the running blood. Like, it was just insane. It was completely insane. I actually don't even know how I survived.
Having to keep up. And having to keep up with the tanning and the fact that, those guys they were wearing
they had no clothes
anything.
On.
So
I know. They were wearing a loincloth.
Like a full, you're doing like a full body of makeup and hair. And it was just, amazing.
It was intense. It was really intense. And I do remember at the beginning of that job, because Andy's, his turnaround and his time in the chair and all of those things, the producers came to have a chat with me because I was doing it. I can't even remember. I think some days there were up to, 10 applications of different prosthetic pieces, and then all of the bruising and the healing scabs and all the rest of it, plus the wig and everything. And I remember, and the body wash and the dirt, I remember the producers coming up and saying, now we know that you're doing your absolute best, but is there any way you can get that time down? And I just had to say, I can't. Like, I think I got it down to an hour and, it was like an hour and 15 on some days and an hour 30 on others, but I just couldn't. I did have have someone assisting me. Oh, I know. It was crazy. And then I would always have to break down the next episode, and it was wild. But I will say that, with the support, like Jane O'Kane, who was our makeup designer on that, she's absolutely phenomenal. One of the hardest workers I've ever come across. And she has, my God, she's just amazing. And she's so supportive, and, her vision is unbelievable. And I knew that I could always go to her at any time, if I felt like I was lagging in any way or I needed some support. She was always there. She was amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, she is. And she's just so incredibly well-rounded. She's so good at everything, which is amazing. And yeah, she's a really amazing designer to work for. So, yeah, that was quite an experience.
So when you've got something like that, that's always changing and evolving, and I mean, you've got the wounds healing, new ones coming in. Are you just kind of going with the flow, and like how planned is this with the pieces and stuff? Is it the director going, because I mean, you've got the fight beats and everything. Do you just wait for that fight to happen?
Basically, yeah. So basically an episode before the one, while we're currently shooting one, you would get the fight beats and the choreography from the stunt department for the next episode. So Jane and I would have a meeting. I think we used to have a meeting maybe once a week or once an episode. I can't remember how it used to work. I think it might have been once an episode. We would sit down after the, 16-hour day was complete. We would sit down in her office because there was never any time. Like I was on every second of every day on set. There was no time to prep, during work time, because it was television. It was kind of television of like a film quality. They wanted the highest standard, but it was a really fast turnaround. And we used to, so Jane and I used to sit down once an episode, and we would go through the fight beats for the next episode, and we would select, we had kind of a catalogue of wounds, and we would select what wounds Andy was going to have and where they would be placed, obviously according to the choreography. And then then Jane, because I couldn't manage that as well, so she would do all the ordering of the wounds to make sure, I think Main Reactor was doing all of that at the time. So she would order everything through Main Reactor so that we had however many sets. So she'd work out how many sets we needed for that episode. Plus, the healing ones, if they were big, juicy gashes, we would have the healing ones from the current episode. And so she would then figure out how many sets of everything I needed, and she would just make sure that everything was always ready for me, ready to go, so that I could just apply them on the day. I used to do a little, just get the colour on. And then there's obviously a lot of fresh blood. So it was kind of, we used to just figure that out, episode by episode. But, Jane was really amazing. She would just have it all ready to go for me.
On top of it.
That's right. And I would just walk into work in the morning, and the fresh wounds would have arrived. And, it was a big factory, that's for sure, of turning everything around and making sure that we all had everything, because of course there was not only Andy, there was all of the other characters as well that were going through varying levels of that themselves. So it was a big job, that one.
And then so with his, were you looking after his stunt double as well, or was somebody else?
I had somebody else looking after his stunt double. So if I was ever able to do it, which that's my thing, if I'm ever able to do my stunts, I like to do them. As I was saying before, I'm a little bit of a stickler for continuity. I feel the same way about the doubles. And especially in recent years, the doubles, it's just, there is a little bit of a mentality around, she's just a double or he's just a double, so don't worry about it, it's going to be fine. But that's not how I roll. And the reason being is that
it's just a double that's going on camera.
That's right. It's just a double that's going on camera. And in recent years, what they've started doing is actually using the footage of the double. So they're actually using the doubles. So, for example, their hair. Okay, so if they do a stunt, but they're not going to get that same kind of action out of the actual cast member, what they do is they do a face replacement, and they put the actor's face onto the stunt double's body if they need to. And so you're actually getting, that's true, we're not necessarily going to be ever seeing the double's face, but certainly we will be seeing their hair. So it's always really important to me that the wigs are basically identical, that the double has as good a wig as the cast member does. And, it depends. I mean, don't get me wrong, if it's like a background driving stunt or something, then no, that's not necessary. But, when it's action based, for example, on Aquaman with Mera and her double, for those fight sequences and things, it was critical that the double had the same quality of hair that the actress does.
Yeah. And I guess the same color of red too, because if that was varying, I mean, they could probably play with it a bit in post, but you want to save them from having to do that too, I guess, right?
Yes. I think that's
lady, it sounds like you.
Out, I know. Yeah, I think we had five 5 human hair wigs for Mira and her doubles.
Oh, wow.
And I was in charge of obviously keeping on top of the colour, and we were using a lot of water on that job. So they were incredibly high maintenance because, we're using kind of fudge, paint box to get that vibrancy that the director was after. I was using, a couple of different shades of fudge paint box to get that intensity and vibrancy. So,
which is just a direct, it's just a direct dye. So it's just going to keep washing out, isn't it?
They do. Yeah. And I mean, when the wigs arrived to us, they were obviously already red, but he wanted them, so that it was never like they would sort of wash out to something that was, a terrible colour, but it was just that kind of, flaming red intensity that James Wan was after. So it was quite a bit of maintenance across all the wigs. And the fact that they were, waist length and, sort of curly, that was also a lot of work. But
yeah, that's awesome. And I have to say, so I have to ask, throughout the shooting of The Hobbit and looking after Bilbo Baggins, Mr. Martin Freeman, and now that shoot, like, it was over such a long period of time that we were on that.
Yes.
How difficult did you find it to keep on top of your continuity with that? I mean, were we shooting that like all over the place, or it wasn't too bad? I don't actually remember.
I think
when you're telling one story over the period of like 2 years, it's kind of.
I know, it's true. I mean, I guess
you have to think about it, don't you?
Bilbo, absolutely. I guess the way that I kind of, in my mind, for something that's of that length, and when, Bilbo Baggins has kind of got his, his staple every day, his ears, his, he had beard cover because they didn't, hobbits don't grow hair out of their faces. They seem to grow an extreme amount from everywhere else, but for some reason not from their faces. So he had, the beard cover. Yeah. He had, we actually wanted to change Martin's skin tone quite dramatically because they sort of wanted that kind of Martin's got really pale skin, and they kind of wanted to warm him up. He's sort of more of a peachy kind of a sort of a cheruby, sort of a face. So we were using, I would say, quite a lot of makeup on a male, which, is sort of, again, goes against what I would normally do on a male. So that was, he did have quite a bit of makeup on, and I used to sort of break it down with airbrushing and bits and pieces like that to sort of give him some texture and to, so it didn't look too solid. So he had, and then ears, wig, and then he had his feet, which were taken care of by the prosthetics department. But with Martin, aside from the things that he had every day, I would just, he had basically throughout his journey, he would have varying levels of breakdown. And I guess in my mind on any job, I try to always keep it at about 3 levels, because you kind of know, in my mind, I always sort of think, it's a level 1, it's a 2 or a 3, 1 being a really light kind of a bit of a lived in travel grime, and number 3 being, like he's been rolling around in the mud, or he's, they haven't had a wash in, 6 months, and, has been in fights and whatever it might be. So I kind of keep it at about 3 levels. And I think you just kind of pinpoint areas, I think if the level always matches, then you're okay. And you just don't, if there is a sort of a standout area of dirt, you just have to make sure that you're kind of keeping that. If there's something that catches the eye, which is kind of, in my experience, sort of more that you want to avoid, because as you say, when you're shooting something that long, you just kind of want it to be generic kind of breakdown. So it wasn't too hard to keep a track of it, I guess, because you've always got your photos, and I know that sometimes for the actors it's frustrating, but, in their minds, they're like, you've got photos of this already. We've done this look already. And it's like, yes, we have, but, if there's a slight tweak, you just want to be armed and ready in case somebody picks something up, like the script supervisor or the director or whatever it may be. You just want to know that you've got all bases covered, So that's obviously a really important part, is making sure that you photograph them if they have dirt and things like that. If it's just a beautiful, pretty makeup and you're doing something contemporary and you're doing the same thing every single day, then no, you don't need to, be photographing them for every scene. That's exactly right. But, you just be photographing for the hair continuity, things like that.
Just any changes.
I was going to ask, with all the designers that you've worked with, how, like, are they quite different with their involvement? So I imagine sometimes they're very involved and hands-on and kind of giving you the products that they want you to use to achieve the look and all that type of thing, through to, I assume you would have worked with someone at some point that's just kind of like, this is kind of what I want. Here you go. Off you go. See you later. I mean, there's a spectrum. There's a, quite a spectrum there, isn't there, for designers and how they work.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that, over the years I've worked with a few designers, and I've worked with a lot, and you really get to know how they work. And I guess there's a lot of trust there because you've built such a great relationship over the years. So often with those designers, you'll come in there and they'll say, this is who you're looking after. And they might have some specific ideas that I mean, the designers always have a vision, I think. They always have their research and they have their references. They might be stuck up around the wall, or they may have made a folder for that character already going, this is what I see. But I think with those designers, when you've been working with someone for a long time, they, I guess they've got you there because they trust you and they know that, I guess if you're going to be able to pull off whatever it is that they want, or they just basically, as you say, are going to leave you to it. So there are so many ways to do things. And I guess that's the thing that I love with the designers. They'll give you the freedom to kind of go about it. And if you have got a question, because of course, the designers that I'm working with have got way more experience than I have. So it's really nice to, if you do have a question at any time, you can go to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or I've tried this product and this product, didn't love it. What would you use? Or, but most of the time, the designers that I work with just let me go for it. And I'll start testing and playing around, and I might, do a few tests on another crew member, another member of our team, or you might get a double in for the actor or whatever it is. I always find that the more testing you can do before you get to camera test time, the better. And obviously preferably on the actor, because it's just nice to play around with, different things, I guess, and see what works out best. Whereas if you're limited on time, sometimes you start out with something, but it can develop as the shoot goes on, I think. You go, I'll get the same result. I might try this product because it might just have a slightly better finish or whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden, you have kind of tweaked things as things go on and they get a bit better, But sorry, I segued there. So I think that the designers, I think I've worked with a couple where they've sort of provided me with, kind of like a bag of things and sort of said, I thought these would be really great to try. And I'll say, okay, great. Well, we'll give these a try. But they'll always say, and I'm sure you've got things that you want to try too. So there is a different level of involvement. And I think for me, normally what happens is if I am looking after the lead, I guess it ends up that I'm incredibly busy and there's not really much time. Once I'm on set most, all day, most days. And so, once you've done your camera test and the designer's happy and the director's happy and the actor's happy, that's it. You're just kind of into it, until you might have, until you might have changes of looks or whatever it might be. There might be a flashback. You might go back 20 years. You might have a different wig, those sorts of things. Then, you be back in communication with the designer again to say, what do you think? Did you think they would have their hair out for that look? Or I always like to have the designer's input, or because it is their vision at the end of the day, and it's my job to create that vision, I guess, as best as I can.
Yeah.
But the designers that I work with are always willing for me to have input as well, which is really nice.
That is nice. And I think just when they have that trust in you and you can feel that, it gives you the confidence to kind of move forward and on with it and just get into it and be like, okay, everybody's happy. This is great. Let's do it.
That's right. Exactly. And then, you also have, sometimes you work with directors who have a really strong vision about things themselves. And so often you'll just end up dealing directly with the director, you know what I mean? And I had that just recently on Mulan, which hasn't come out yet, but Nikki Caro, she has a really, I guess being a female director, she had a really strong vision around, how she wanted leading Lady Mulan to look. And so I would, we just sort of ended up working together on that. If she wanted, especially she had a strong vision about her hair and how she wanted that to be. And so we kind of communicated in the very, early days before we started shooting. And I would always just check in with her, in those first couple of weeks, are you happy? Just want to make sure that we're on the right track, and everything's good. And yeah, I think that's the thing. It's just about, again, keeping the communication open. And a lot of the time in our business, I always say that no comment's a good comment, because everyone's so busy. If nobody says anything, then things are good.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
That's kind of how I operate. I'm like, occasionally you'll get a producer or the director or someone who will say, thank you so much, they look so great, or whatever it is. And that's always really lovely feedback. It's always so great to hear that. But they're so busy, and it's like, as long as you're not getting feedback that things aren't right, then you're on the right track. And if things aren't right, that's a big part of the job. You just have to be open, you have to be flexible, you have to be adaptable, you have to be willing to listen. And at the end of the day, it's the director's vision, and what they want is what they get, and you have to be ready to make changes and do things to make them happy, basically.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, you've also done a bit of work as a personal. Do you have a preference?
Well, I think I do love, I guess the great thing, one of the pros about being a personal for me is I've got a young family now. So one thing that I really do love about that is that it's a known quantity. So, you might look at the schedule, and again, going back to the fact that things change often, the actor or actress you're looking after might be on for 3 days that week, and you sort of pretty much guaranteed that you'll work those 3 days, but then you'll have another couple of down days. Or you might just go in for a couple of hours to do some stuff with the double, or do a bit of prep, or, do some week prep, whatever it might be. So I guess for me, having a family that can provide me a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more time at home. And I do, the only thing with that though is that, because I do hair and makeup, if you're a personal, you're sort of a one-man band, I guess. And so, that would be one thing that I would say that's, not as good, as I really do love being a part of a team. I love the camaraderie of a team. So I guess I just make sure that if I'm a personal, I just still nestle my way in there and just make sure that, being involved with the team, because I love that. And I love learning new things. And as I was saying before, there's not just one way to do anything, it's like there's many ways to skin a cat, so to speak. So it's kind of like we're all so busy and people are using new products. There's always new things happening. So it's just nice to be able to be involved with the team and see what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, totally. I think it's even more difficult, I think, if you're being a personal and then you're stuck in a completely different trailer by yourself. I can't imagine, must be just even more difficult to try and get in with the team.
I know, that's right. But I guess just, always being open. Yeah, being open. And often I'll have, communication with, if they've got a key hair or makeup artist, before, especially if you're going to another country or whatever, I always keep the communication really open right from the beginning, so that I'm sort of chatting with those designers or supervisors or whatever, so that when I get there, you've kind of already got a little bit of a rapport, and you've already had that introduction over the email. Yeah. So when you get there, it's sort of, nice that you've got a little bit of a buddy on the ground, someone that can help you out, Yeah.
So true, so true. What attributes do you think have helped you get to this stage in your career?
Oh, these are hard questions, JL. Okay, so no, I'm not good at this. So
I don't think it's hard. I think you probably just don't like tooting your own horn, that's all.
No, I'm not very good at that. Okay, so I guess one thing I think that has been a great attribute for me has been being a hairdresser and a makeup artist. So I know that it works really differently in the States, obviously, but over here, as you know, JL, often, if you can do both, you do both. And I think that having that hairdressing experience has been really great for me all those years in the salon, because, having that color knowledge. And I think you build up, in those being really young in a salon, I think you build up your people skills a lot. I would have done, a lot of that in my teenage years. My clients were, probably in their 30s and 40s and 50s, you know what I mean? So you kind of learn really great social skills at a young age. So I would say that's one thing, being a hair and a makeup artist has been great for me. So I would say being passionate about this job, I think you have to really love what you do, because it's, with the hours that we do, it's not for the faint-hearted, it's quite an intense workplace, and you really do have to be on. Well, that's how I feel anyway. So I think being passionate about what I do. Yeah. Being open, I think I was saying before, I think being open to new ideas, being open to learning, willing to listen, those things are really important. Yeah. Because there are a lot of people that I was saying before that you need to keep happy, and also having your own opinion and your own ideas as well. But I think it is important that you can be open and that you don't shut down if someone's saying that they don't necessarily like something, because it's not a personal attack. It's just not what their vision is. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily what they wanted or whatever it is. So you just have to be open and also be strong and don't take things personally, I guess. And also,
true.
Yeah. And I think also being just probably relates to that last point, but I think that I'm a flexible person and adaptable. So I can, when things do change, you have to be ready to roll with the punches, And you can't kick up a stink if you don't like the idea of something. It's kind of like, it's not going to go down well with anybody. So you have to be flexible and I think just focused, really, just being on. When you're on set, you're on. And I guess that probably comes back to being passionate about it again. If you love what you do, then you want to do it well. Yeah,
exactly. And I think from working with you and watching you work, your professional ethics are pretty up there. So I would like to know, I guess, what professional ethics really resonate with you? What are you, what am I trying to say? I said it right.
What's important? Yeah. I think
just as far as professional ethics, like what resonates strongly with you?
Okay, well, I think the things that resonate with me and that are important to me in this business are definitely punctuality. There's no such thing as being 5 or 10 minutes late for work in the film industry. It's like your start time is your start time, and everything is down to the minute. We provide our makeup times, and essentially you need to be done within that time. Otherwise, people are going to be asking questions. And again, going back to the hairdressing days, the salon days, everything is on the minute to appointments. You're working on a 30-minute appointment or a 45-minute appointment, and that's that, so you have to know that you can get the job done within that time. So time is very important. I think integrity, I think reliability, if that's an ethic, I'm not sure. But I think reliability.
I think so.
And I think using one's initiative, having good common sense is quite important. And I think having good stamina. I mean, that's probably definitely not an ethic, but I think it's something that's important in our business. Because their hours are long and, you're standing all day and all those sorts of things. And I'd say lastly, something that's really important to me is, being authentic. I just think being a good human being and being kind. I think that those things are really important to me.
Yeah. I think they can get you a long way in life. It's good.
Yes.
And it just keeps you happier in your job when you're being nice and people are being nice to you, and it's a nice environment and you're working long hours and you just are happier.
That's exactly right. And we work so closely, when you are, as you say, if you're on the main team and you're working in a trailer of, there could be 5 of you. It's like these people, these are your teammates, and we all, it's human nature to have frustrations and things. And, when you're working in such close proximity, but at the end of the day, we're all in it together, and everyone's got their own circumstances, and, people do get stressed and tired at times, but at the end of the day, we all need to be there to look after one another and have a good time,
Yeah,
it's a fun job.
And I will say that I've spent 2.5 years in a trailer with you, and you were lovely the whole time. So,
thanks.
I'm sure I drove you insane at times, as I do drive everybody.
No, I think we had a great team on that trailer. That was good times. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just wondering if there's one piece of advice that you received in the past that really stuck with you, like while you were coming up and learning in the industry.
Any advice? Oh, my God. I think that it might be going back to Peter King's famous words, which I have never forgotten. which were just, on my first day on set. Just I think he might have said, Dolly, just make it work. It's like, oh, okay. So maybe that would be my piece of advice that has just stuck with me forever. Just make it work, just got to,
figure it out
for a reason, figure it out. And there's always an amazing team of people around us. And don't be scared to ask for help. Like, we can't all do everything. You know what I mean? Perfectly. Like everyone, I think that's the thing. It's just being true to yourself and being open to saying to someone, oh, this is not working. Has anyone else got any ideas? Because that's when you learn. And I think that's the best thing for all of us, is that's how we grow, is by learning from other people. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, now I want to know, what is your one tool or product that you would not want to work without? I know there's many, but you've got to choose one.
Well, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to go for hair. I'm going to have a hair and a makeup. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Go.
So I'm going to say for hair, I'm going to strip it right back to basics. Nothing fancy. For hair, it's going to be my Goldilocks tail comb. The dark red, sort of maroony coloured tail comb by Crest. That is my one thing that I cannot be without. I just can't. For hair, you always need a tail comb. And there's no better tail comb in the world as far as I'm concerned. They're so good, that one. I grew up my whole hairdressing career using those, foiling and colouring hair, and then into film. We're just working with anyone's, natural hair, putting in part lines, working with wigs, lifting the hair off the root, whatever it is, that tail comb is an absolute winner.
Yeah.
And then it's my go-to. And then I think some makeup. I know there's always a couple in my standby bag, my standby belt, a couple in my pocket, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. At my station, I've just always have to have a lot of them. And then for makeup, I think, again, just going back to something really simple and basic, but I'm going to say my Bobbi Brown concealer, corrector, and foundation palette. That foundation palette, it's a really good staple, and it kind of covers such an array of colours, skin tones and everything. So the correctors in there, those bisque under eye correctors, I just think are so phenomenal. It's a really great base, to knock out darkness under the eyes and things like that. Yeah, I just think that's a really excellent palette to have. If you have that wherever you go, if you kind of, throw in and, here's another couple of people, can you sort something out on her or her? It's kind of like your bases are all covered within that palette.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
I think I 100% agree with you with the tail comb. I was thinking about this question the other day, and I was like, I should have an answer for this. Mine would probably be my tail comb and a hairspray.
And a hairspray. Yes, absolutely.
A hairspray. I just wouldn't want to be without hairspray.
No,
I would die without my hairspray.
Yep.
Not that I use hairspray all the time, but it's just, oh my God, take my hairspray away from me.
I know. Disaster,
That's ridiculous.
Disaster.
Well, thanks, Georgia. I loved catching up with you.
Well, thanks, JL. That was great. And I hope that you've got everything you needed from me. Little stories.
Are you tired of having sore shoulders, neck, and a bad back? Are you fed up with clutching actor bags under your armpits whilst doing your last looks on set? And what about those frustrating moments rummaging through an overfilled shoulder bag? Sound familiar? We have the comfortable, practical, and slick solution for you. Linear Standby Belts manufactures customizable tool belts designed for hair and makeup artists by a hair and makeup artist, Georgia Lockhart Adams. It consists of a high-quality padded belt and 12 interchangeable accessories and pouches, which will hold all your on-set needs. With a handy Velcro top on all pouches, you can swap out and change bags quickly. Even hand over actor bags to your colleagues if you step away from set. Work with both hands free and with all your essentials within easy reach. It is a game changer and will make your long working day easier. Come along and join the LSB revolution. Why wait? Visit linearbelts.com to order your customizable tool belt today.
Okay, Last Looks crew, Thanks for listening. And remember, if you love it, share it. A quick scroll down and you'll find our show notes. Or maybe you'd like to give your support and leave a 5-star review. Go on, I know you want to. Search the Last Looks Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, whichever one tickles your fancy. And a massive shout out to the husband, Brett Stanley. Without his patience and tech support, this whole podcast situation simply does not happen. And cheers to Liliana Rose for her fabulous voice acting talents. Okay, Last Looks crew, that's a wrap for me. I don't need to be told twice to get out of here, so bye. I'll catch you on the flip side.
That's a wrap, people.